The other day I was sitting down for coffee with a good friend, just catching up on life. As we talked, he shared something that had happened to him recently, a moment that changed the way he looked at his struggles. He had been going through a rough patch at work, one of those weeks where everything feels like it's piling up. Deadlines were closing in, a major project was going sideways, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to get ahead. Stress was weighing him down, frustration creeping in, and he was running on empty. Then, in the middle of all that chaos, something unexpected happened. A story he had heard long ago suddenly came to mind, not just as a memory, but as something deeply personal, something that spoke directly to what he was going through. It was the story of the road to Emmaus from the Gospel of Luke. That story begins with two companions walking a lonely road, carrying the weight of heartbreak and confusion. They had just witnessed events that shattered their hopes, leaving them lost and unsure of what to do next. As they walked, they were joined by a stranger, someone they didn't recognize at first. But this stranger didn't just walk with them. He spoke in a way that slowly began to open their eyes. He helped them see that, even in their pain, there was a bigger story unfolding, one filled with hope they hadn't yet understood. As I listened to my friend, I couldn't help but notice the parallels. His stressful day at work felt like walking a long, exhausting road with no clear end in sight. Just like those two disciples on their journey to Emmaus, he felt weighed down by uncertainty, frustration, and the nagging sense that everything was going wrong. The road ahead seemed endless, the burden too heavy. But then, just when the day felt like too much, something small but unexpected happened. A colleague, someone who had no idea what he was going through, made a simple, supportive comment. It wasn't a dramatic moment. There were no flashing lights, no grand revelation, just a few kind words, spoken at just the right time. And yet that small gesture changed something. It didn't erase his problems, but it shifted his perspective. For a moment, he could breathe again. That conversation stayed with me because it speaks to something we all experience. We all have days when life feels like a long, uncertain road, when stress, grief, or fear make the way ahead seem impossible to navigate. Maybe it's work that's overwhelming, or maybe it's something deeper, a personal struggle that no one else can see. And in those moments, it's easy to believe we're walking alone, that our burdens are ours to carry in silence. But what if we're not as alone as we think? What if help is closer than we realize? Just like those disciples, we can be so caught up in our struggles that we miss the quiet ways God places encouragement in our path. A kind word from a friend, a shared smile, a small moment of understanding. These are not coincidences. They are reminders that even when the road feels endless, we are not walking it alone. One of the things that stands out to me about the Emmaus story is how hope doesn't always arrive in grand, undeniable ways. It often comes quietly, in moments so small we might overlook them. The disciples walked for miles with a stranger, their hearts heavy, their minds clouded by disappointment, yet they didn't realize who was beside them. And isn't that how it often is for us? We get so caught up in our worries, so weighed down by stress that we fail to see the subtle reminders that we are not alone. It might be a friendly nod from a neighbor, a simple message from a friend checking in, or even a piece of advice from someone who's been down the same road. These moments aren't loud or dramatic, but they have the power to shift something within us, to remind us that we are seen, that we are supported, that hope is never as far away as it seems. My friend told me that on that overwhelming day at work, he finally decided to step away from his desk and go for a walk. He just needed to breathe, to clear his head. And during that walk, he found himself in a conversation with someone he barely knew, a coworker who, as it turned out, had been through something very similar. This person shared how they had learned to manage the stress, not by trying to fix everything all at once, but by taking it one step at a time. It wasn't a long talk, and it wasn't some groundbreaking revelation, but in that moment, it was exactly what my friend needed. And that's what makes this story so powerful. The road to Emmaus isn't just about a miraculous encounter. It's about the way healing and understanding come through everyday moments. It's about the way small connections, a few honest words, or even just the presence of someone who understands can help us see our situation in a new light. When we share our burdens, when we open up even just a little, we give ourselves the chance to see things differently. And sometimes, that shift in perspective is all we need to take another step forward, to find strength we didn't realize we had, and to remember that we were never meant to walk this road alone. It's easy to lose sight of the simple moments that bring clarity and strength. We get caught in the endless cycle of work, family obligations, and personal struggles, pushing forward without stopping to breathe. But this story reminds us of a truth we overlook. Slowing down doesn't mean falling behind. It means realigning with what truly matters. Think about how often we rush from one thing to the next, barely noticing the details of our own lives. Yet transformation doesn't always come in grand, sweeping changes. Sometimes it's found in the smallest pauses, a deep breath when stress builds, a quiet walk when the mind is restless, or a simple moment spent watching the sky change colors at the end of the day. These moments have power. They help us reset, regain perspective, and remember that no matter how overwhelming life feels, we are still moving forward, one step at a time. Just as important is the strength we find in the people around us. Struggles often make us feel isolated, as if no one else could understand what we're facing. But when we take the risk of opening up, we realize we're not as alone as we thought. Sometimes help comes in ways we never expected. A kind word from a coworker, a friend who listens without judgment, or even a stranger's small act of kindness at just the right moment. These connections remind us that healing doesn't always happen in solitude. The road may feel long, but we don't have to walk it alone. Every shared burden becomes a little lighter, and every moment of connection becomes a sign that hope is never out of reach. The road to Emmaus isn't just a story about the past. It's a glimpse into how often we fail to recognize what's right in front of us. In the rush to fix what's broken or escape what feels unbearable, we overlook the quiet ways hope is trying to reach us. Maybe it's hidden in a conversation that shifts our thinking, in a disappointment that clears the way for something better, or in the strength we discover when we have nothing else to lean on. Sometimes, the very thing we see as an obstacle is actually pointing us toward a path we wouldn't have chosen, but one we needed all along. This isn't about pretending everything happens for a reason, or that every hardship carries an obvious lesson. Some things are painful, unfair, and hard to make sense of. But even in those moments, there are traces of something greater, proof that we're not left to struggle alone. A kind word from someone who doesn't even know what we're going through. A door opening where we only saw walls. The right words at the right time, making us feel seen when we thought no one noticed. These aren't coincidences. They're reminders that we're still being guided, even when we don't understand the way forward. As I finish my conversation with my friend, I realize that hope doesn't always come as a sudden breakthrough. More often, it arrives in pieces, small enough to miss if we're too focused on what's missing. But when we learn to see them, to hold on to them, we start to understand that the journey itself is shaping us. It's in the moments when we keep moving, when we let kindness reach us, when we refuse to close ourselves off. That's where real change happens. And maybe that's the real miracle. Not that everything works out exactly as we planned, but that even in the unexpected, we are never without something to hold on to. Maybe the real challenge isn't the weight of our struggles, but the way we rush through them, convinced we have to carry everything alone. But what if, even in the hardest moments, something greater is already at work? What if the very things we overlook, the quiet kindness of a friend, the unexpected encouragement, the strength we didn't know we had, are proof that we're not abandoned in the struggle but gently led through it? God doesn't always reveal himself in grand, unmistakable ways. More often, he speaks in the ordinary, in the moments so easily dismissed. A conversation that shifts our thinking, a small kindness at the perfect time, a reminder that even here, in the uncertainty, we are seen, held, and never without hope. So if the road feels long today, don't rush past the quiet ways God is walking with you. Pause, breathe, look around. The answers may already be unfolding in ways you didn't expect. Thank you for allowing these words to meet you today. If you're willing, let's take a moment to pray, not for instant solutions, but for the eyes to see the grace that has been beside us all along. Lord, in the rush of life, when the weight of our struggles bears down on us, we confess that loneliness often creeps in. The days feel long, our strength wears thin, and we find ourselves carrying burdens we don't know how to set down. We whisper prayers, hoping for relief, yet when answers don't come in the way we expect, doubt stirs, and we wonder if you are near. But Father, you are never absent. Just as you walked beside the weary disciples on the road to Emmaus, hidden from their sight but never from their hearts, you walk with us now. When frustration clouds our vision, when grief numbs our souls, when exhaustion makes it hard to see beyond the moment, open our eyes to recognize you in the places we often overlook. Let us find you not only in miracles, but in the quiet mercies of everyday life. Help us notice the kindness of a friend who listens when we feel unheard, the unexpected encouragement that comes just when doubt takes hold, the strength we gain from a simple, gentle word that reminds us to take one step at a time. These are not small things. They are whispers of your love, woven into our days, proof that you are carrying us even when we feel like we're walking alone. Let us not take them for granted, but receive them as reminders of your unfailing presence. When we retreat into our struggles, afraid to share the weight we carry, give us the courage to reach out. Keep us from believing the lie that no one understands, and remind us that you send people, friends, family, even strangers, to be vessels of your comfort. You never meant for us to bear our burdens in isolation. Teach us to open our hearts, to welcome the love and support you place around us, and to find strength in walking this journey together. And when the road ahead is uncertain, when fear grips our hearts and the way forward feels unclear, deepen our trust in you. Your voice is not always in the thunder or the earthquake, but in the still small whisper that reminds us we are not forsaken. You are the steady light in our darkness, the gentle hand lifting us when we cannot take another step, the unwavering love that holds us even when everything else feels unsteady. Father, we don't always understand your ways, but we cling to this truth. You are here. You have never left us. And even in our hardest, most uncertain days, we are never without hope. Amen.